Hello, investors. This is Connor Bates, Associate Portfolio Manager with Revere Asset Management. Today is Tuesday, April 29th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming to you with tonight's Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. Market state still in a short-term uptrend since that follow-through day. And if we take a look, try and gauge over here on the right side, market leaders on 425 got turned up with a green arrow and they continue to act well. A lot are just riding the shorter term moving averages higher and really seeing that volatility dry up and moving up the right sides of the chart. So good to see there. We are back above the 21 EMA as well. So green arrow there. And actually on the S&P, the 8 got back above the 21 today, which is typically tends to signal, good odds for a continued rally. If you go back and look at 2022, many of the rallies were characterized once the 8 got back above the 21. Medium term, saw that 50-day moving average as overhead resistance. And again, long term, we are below the 200-day moving average. So what happened today? Well, basically just seeing bulls continue to maintain momentum, and that is ahead of four huge earnings reports on Wednesday and Thursday, along with countless other economic reports coming out for the rest of the week. File numbers 21 over 21 list up 1.08%, 17 green, 1 neutral, 3 red. Big 8 up 0.68%, RG8 up 0.59%. And then 60/40 stock and bond up 0.36%, GROTECTION up 0.35%, and TurboTection up 0.25% on the day. That is that. We'll get into the inter-asset correlation as usual. Alrighty, chart of the S&P 500. So let's just kind of talk this through. Continue to build higher lows off this 48.35 low, back above the 8 and the 21. 8's crossing back above the 21, holding above 5,500, which is now turning into support. So that's a very good sign. And now looking ahead, what do we have next? We have the 50-day coming here, which is still sloping down. So that is still a bit of a concern for the bulls. Then we have that 200-day as well above. So just continue to watch how price reacts to these levels. On a 60-minute basis, you can see a little bit overbought, right? 4,800 all the way up into, 5,550 is a decent move. So maybe backfill here or, come into the 50-day moving average, see how price reacts there. But again, just kind of watching these levels above. And then again, S&P actually got back above the 10-week, but still got the 20, 30, and 40-week above. So really just day by day, like we've been preaching on the videos for weeks now, any headline can come out at any time. So we're always aware of that. But for the S&P, just, trading against each level. And for now, bulls are holding momentum and keeping it up. RSP again, kind of breaking out of this mini 4-day consolidation, coming into the 50 and 200-day Qs. Into the 50-day here, didn't get it back above, but again, similar thing, right? Got this 200-day, and then if we really start going up, you have this 500 level, which kind of coincided with that breakdown off the highs. That is another level of interest above. Mag 7 building a little flag here after this move off the lows. Dow Jones, looks good. Trying to come through this base again. Same story. These overhead above. Mid caps forming a little flag. Russell 2000, a little bit choppier, but the 8's trying to get above the 21 as well. See what it can do if it gets to this 2000 level. ARC back above the 200-day. So a little bit of relative strength there. Some of the ARC names have been strong. Roblox has held up pretty well. Tesla closed back above the 200-day today. So we'll see there. FFTY leaders into the 50-day. VIX continues to move down. This is good. We're already seeing how different the market is with the VIX lower, right? Rule of 16. When we're up here, expect bigger daily ranges. Now this is coming back down. We're just seeing a lot more smoother action, and especially with individual stocks. In a high VIX environment, high volatility environment, the ATR of all the individual stocks gets elevated as well. So if you're trading like a high beta name like Palantir, for example, that could be having like a 10, 12% intraday range a day. But we're seeing a lot of that dampen, and these names, since kind of breaking out of some of these double bottom base pivots, they've been trading really smooth. Dollar, just kind of hanging out here in the lows. GLD continues to hold up higher. Either this is just a normal pullback or this is a bear wedge after that break off the highs. We're kind of watching this for both ways. If equity stay bid, maybe gold will pull back, vice versa. Gold stocks, again, kind of looking like a bear flag after this break off the highs. We'll see. Silver, relative weakness versus gold. Bitcoin continues to act phenomenal, building some really nice rate side development up here. It's a really nice move off the 200-day moving average, and maybe this starts to handle out, or maybe this pushes back up into the highs and forms a handle, but nevertheless, this looks really good. Always looking to add to this one. Bonds back above the 200-day, TLT coming back up, and that coincides with the rates kind of breaking down through here as well. It's the inter-asset correlation. We will get into the tail of the tape. Let's see. Percent of stocks above the 5-day, a little bit overbought, closed at 80 today. So again, maybe that comes down if the S&P starts to handle. News-wise, PCE report tomorrow, and typically it's pre-market, but tomorrow it is at 10 a.m. So that be on the lookout for that. Yeah, I've never seen it during market hours, so that should be interesting. And then big tech earnings, that's going to be big. Wednesday we have Microsoft and Meta, and then Thursday we have Apple and Amazon. 40% of the S&P 500 reporting this week. Today's keys, S&P and the Qs versus the 21 and the 50-day, back above the 21 EMA, still below the 50-day. S&P turned that 5,500 level into support, and then leaders, green arrow there as well. And then into tomorrow, watching the same thing, watching the S&P versus 21 and 50, still watching that 5,500 level, leaders, and then what's the reaction to some of these big earnings reports along with some of the economic data that we're going to see. Day count up 5 days above the 8, 4 days above the 21. Sectors wise, hacks, cybersecurity, and software continues to be strong. Regional banks, real estate, and financial strong as well. And then weakness, gold, semiconductors, and China. GROTECTION today bought starters in PEN and CRS. That brought the RVAB up to 0.67 with 2.69% open heat. And then TurboTection today got stopped out of ADMA, did the offensive trim in HIMS, and then bought a starter in CoreWeave, CRWV, 0.43 RVAB, minus 3.02% open heat. And the bottom line today, bulls maintain momentum ahead of key earnings and data. Alrighty, let's start with the trades. Start with GROTECTION. Took start in Penumbra, sorry about that. Had a strong earnings reaction and just building a flag here. Looks good, relative strength confirming. And then CRS, again, forming a little flag here, right below this double bottom base pivot. Again, relative strength line acting strong. That was everything for GROTECTION today. ADMA got stopped out of this in turbo, did wick off the 8, was weak off the open, but this can reclaim. This still looks good in a strong group. Medical biotech names have been noticeably strong. Bought a starter in CoreWeave. This is a new IPO starting to emerge out of this little 4 days tight. Did close in the range. That makes 5 days of extremely tight closes. Some decent numbers over here along with the sales. You can see there. So this is on watch for a U-turn as well. And then HIMS, we took an offensive trim on this one today, gapped up 40% at the highs, closed the day up 23%. And one thing I wanted to talk about was the setup and the thought process going into this trade as we bought this yesterday, as Don mentioned. So one thing that I've noticed is a pattern in some of these names is the 3 weeks tight off the 40-week moving average. And this is a more non-conventional trade. It's definitely more of a creative entry, right? Don't do these as often as breakouts, pull back by some moving averages, etc. But this can offer some attractive risk to reward. Obviously, we got lucky with the news gapping up 40%, and we trimmed into that. But what we saw here, you can see 3 weeks, 3 tight weeks right at the 40-week moving average. 40-week moving average is typically a spot that institutions like to come in. And again, this coincides with the 200-day as well. And you can see this tight range that it was forming, double inside days off the 200-day. Your risk was really low, right? It was about 3-4% to the 200-day. And then on Monday, it started to break out of this range, closed mid-range, looked fine. And then this came with the news today on the gap. And then again, this is the 3 weeks tight off the 40-week moving average is typically in names that you're bullish fundamentally on. Him says phenomenal earnings and sales growth. This is only a $6 billion company, super liquid name with a lot of growth ahead. So this pullback looked attractive on a risk reward basis. And then in terms of, the 3 weeks tight and some other examples, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but this is something I have noticed previously, and you can see COV is a great example this year. Big move up, pull back to the 40-week moving average, 3 tight closes, and this led to a nice bounce here. And then another example is GE Aerospace. This one, again, this year had 4 really tight weeks here off the 40-week moving average, and that led to a nice move above. So have noticed this is a spot that institutions start to come back, start to accumulate on the pullback. And that was the thought process under the HIMS trade. Close right at the 50-day, so maybe this needs some more time to flag. Also, his earnings in 6 days. Alrighty, that's that. Let's take a look at 21 over 21 list. TGTX closing right at the highs, and this fits the bill of the strength in the medical and biotech. You have Eli Lilly that looks good. HIMS with the monster gap today. TGTX. WGS as well. This is starting to come out of a really nice base. Earnings tomorrow. We'll see how this one acts. Guidewire coming out of this double bottom pivot back above 200. This one looks great as well. And again, this is another double bottom base off the 200-day moving average. Take two, true leader here, continuing higher out of this base. Very strong, nice volume. CrowdStrike continues higher. Watch this 455.59 level as resistance, but this one's super strong. Cybersecurity stocks are definitely a leading theme in the market right now. They continue to act really good and one of the best sectors in tech stocks as well. And that brings me right to ZS. Relative strength line new highs. This is breaking out of a huge base. This one looks really good. Definitely want into this one, 6 days up in a row into the top of the range. Would like to see this handle out, pull back and retest. Dash double bottom base here coming against breaking out of this downtrend line. This one looks kind of similar to, Spotify and some of these other names. TKO, relative strength line new highs. Uber, this one looks good as well. We own it. Tight consolidation after breaking through this 77 pivot. Netflix new highs, just very strong leader. Palantir, again, one of the best names in the market right now. 5 days up in a row. I'd watch it against this 125.41 left side high. HUD consolidating under this 50 spot. Carvana, this one continues to be strong as well. Again, 4 or 5 days up in a row. Bitcoin covered that. GEV, another leader, looks the best in the alternative energy group. And maybe this handles out, but the right side of the space is developing really nicely. And a big thing with this one is earnings are already out the way, so you don't have to worry about that as we get into the thick of the earnings seasons. Always know your earnings dates. Chewy, nice cup. Maybe it handles out here. LNG, nice little flat top base. Penumbra, Boeing, double bottom base, 184.40 is the pivot. CRS, double bottom base. Spotify, kind of weak reaction to earnings. Close the day down only 3.5%. So we'll see. But as long as these lows hold, maybe that was just a shake. And then some other earnings that we had. Eat. This one was a relative strength name. This one got kind of hammered, down almost 15% on earnings today. But as long as it can hold the 200-day, it's all right. Visa reported after hours as well. They're up about 1%. You had LRN as well. It's up 3%. And then SMCI pre-announced down 17%. They're getting smoked. And then this new IPO oddity is up 20%, breaking out of a huge weekly base, and it's at 56. So this is taking out IPO highs. So young name, pretty decent sales and earnings, and this one's given a power earnings gap. So we'll see how it reacts tomorrow with relative strength line, new highs. That is the 21 over 21 list. And like I mentioned, pretty good action across the board. Obviously, with 40% of the S&P 500 reporting this week, expect some volatility along with handful of economic reports. We have PCE tomorrow, then Thursday, ISM, manufacturing, jobless claims, and then Friday, non-farm payrolls as well. So we'll see how the market reacts to this news. Remember, it's always the reaction, not necessarily the news. Good news could get sold into and bad news could get bought up. So you just have to see how the market reacts, and that goes with earnings as well. Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Amazon, all very big names reporting. So expect the indexes, maybe that could propel us through the 50-day moving average and see what happens at the 200-day, or we could pop into the 50-day and reject, and we'd want to see this 5,500 spot hold. So many scenarios, but nevertheless, leaders are acting good. S&P's building higher lows. So pretty good action from the bulls today. They continue to maintain the momentum, and we'll just have to see what the rest of the week brings. That is going to wrap it. As always, I'd like to hear from you. My email is connor@revereasset.com, and you can always find me on X at ConnorJBates_. And you can always reach out to Dan or Don at revereasset.com. Phone is 855-REAL-WEALTH, 855-732-5932. If you're ever interested in becoming a client, as always, please reach out. Thanks for watching and have a great night.